Go ahead and begin our recording. Well, welcome everyone. On the behalf of the Division of Community Engagement, I am excited to welcome you to today's session about data dissemination. My name is Shalyn Wellington. I am a community engaged educator here in the division. Our session today is going to focus on the processes and intentional strategies that guide how past grant recipients plan to share findings in collaboration with their community partners. Our goal today is to explore conceptual and practical disseminations of community engaged dissemination and how we can move beyond conventional reporting methods to share knowledge in ways that are collaborative, inclusive, and impactful. We are joined by several past recipients of the Division Community Engagement's Data Dissemination Grant from the previous year, who will reflect on how they've envisioned and planned their dissemination approaches. They will discuss guiding principles, innovative tools, community partnerships that shape their work, offering insights into the intentionality and creativity that the effective dissemination requires. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our first recipient, Dr. Kablinski.
Thank you all. So I was very interested in the project and the grant just because of the times we're in, right? And feeling like we need to make sure that we are able to let people in the community know what we're doing and how we can help them, and how our work that we are doing are helping them. So I am the director of Cancer Mouse Models Corps, and I'm the co-lead of our U54 grant, where we get patient-derived xenografts, which means we're taking patient tissue and putting them into mice and growing tumors, and then treating them with drugs to see if this will work in the patient. And the more diverse that population is, the better, right? So actually, before this last election, it was called the Minority U54 grant. That kind of got scrubbed out of the name now, but that was one of the main parts of it. And also, I am the scientific director of our, it's called TDAC, but basically shortening it is Biorepository Histopathology Corps. So that's where we also are taking patient samples and utilizing them in research. And I wanted people to understand how important it is that if unfortunately they have something horrible like cancer, that there's something that they could maybe think to be good out of it. It could be given to research. So I had been looking at all the murals around here, and I thought, let's paint a mural with some artists. And luckily, I got a student, MD PhD student, Nina Deshati Gibson. She's in Chuck Harrell's lab, and she was amazing. So if you have a student that'll collab with you, I highly recommend it. She's been great. And then I started reaching out and thinking about what we could do. And my whole idea is, I'm going to say, completely teamwork, because I did not know what I'm doing. And I'll show you, I just made a quick chart showing you that this is my, here, I can probably make this, sorry. This is my my understanding, the amount I learned, right? It just continues to keep going up of what I did. So in the end, I started talking to VCU Health and VCU Art Engagement. Can I paint a mural on a wall? And they're like, that's going to take a lot for you to get all these permits. And I didn't have enough time to do any of that before it was due. So Alexis at VCU Health suggested we make a traveling mural. So that's where that idea came from. Then when I started talking to artists, they said what we could kind of make it, a little bit paint by number. That evolved over time too. But all of these people that we got that were involved helped give me ideas, and things kept evolving. And so that's my biggest advice is listen, have that community champion member, listen to the people around you of how it might morph into something different and better. And so what we did was we had them come together and draw sketches. And I'm not good at saying no, and I wanted to involve different people. This is what made it a little slower, is to get the three artists to come together with a design. But I'm really happy now that that is what happened. So this is this is a graffiti artist, you can tell. This is a abstract artist, and he's dream work artist. And they're all artists in our community, and this was their idea of what they were going to paint. And we since we only have a short time, I can answer more questions in detail. But basically, we came up with that idea. We'd paint it on a mural, and then this guy, silly genius, he was like, "Oh," I said, "I want to make a QR code that will go to the website." So that's why Massey's um, communications team has been so helpful, and they were like to make it so that then people can see what this is about and understand the science, and we can keep updating it. And he told me someone to talk to that would help me make the QR code that would last outside. And then that guy questioned me about how I was making the mural panels. So that led me to actually um, find another person to help us make murals that were stable. Turned out that was going to cost me way more than the VCU provost money I had because I needed to pay the three artists. So I asked Massey for matching funds. So I will tell you, I didn't do this in $5,000. I did it in 10,000. And honestly, I dipped into some of my own money. I paid some things out of my pocket. I'm not telling you you should do that, but I'm just going to be honest, and paid for some things. So the other idea came to get the community. Why don't we do this painting at the market? So this is one of the biggest, our big markets, and we did it at Bryant Park just a couple of weeks ago. So, and this was like something that went out to Faith Facts Friday. The community outreach helped us. And Massey helped me make these flyers. These went out and cancer clinics. It was posted into Instagram, Facebook. But I honestly think the majority of the people that came were because they were coming through the marketplace. So now it's going to travel, and I thought I would be done, but this is a beautiful painting at the end, and you can see the QR code here. But I need to still get the titles on here because our community champion really felt like they needed to have the titles on there. So I have the artist coming back to add that part in. And then they said, well, what if someone tags it? And you don't want it to be ruined if it's outside. So now I realize I had to buy graffiti protection. And I got that coming Monday, and I'll paint that, and then I'll start putting it into different locations. So the idea is this is going to move every couple of weeks who's going to do that? My husband and I and my kids in the back of my minivan. And move it around to faith centers. And that is from community outreach. Reverend Rachel Pierce is helping me connect. And also Dr. Masalva has someone for me to connect with. So that's the goal, is to move it around for the next year. And I think I'm probably at the end of my 7 minutes, so I'll leave it there, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kablinski. Do we have a couple of quick questions, and then we will have time for a full Q&A at the end? And let me see, I can't see everybody.
I can stop.
No, you're fine. Okay, seeing none. If you have questions that arise throughout the presentations, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll be sure to come back to them as well. And I'm now going to welcome Dr. Jones.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm going to pull my screen up. So I am a postdoctoral fellow in Department of Social Behavioral Sciences and working on the WE project, who the PIs are Dr. Masavo and Dr. LaRose. So I've had the privilege to come and help create a way to share the results of our WE project. And WE has been created long before I got here as a postdoc. It actually started back in like 2013, where we worked with a nonprofit organization in Petersburg, and a CAD member, community members, and volunteers. And in this first iteration, they had a creative way of disseminating the findings, in which they put on this play, in which they partnered with a local theater company, and over 250 people came out, and they had a separate event, a youth day, where they sat at tables, did some Q&As, and just explaining and talking about different health topics. So those events were very successful when it happened nearly 10 years ago. Fast forwarding to today, we initiated the WE 2.0 project. And again, this is a combination of community partners, our research team, our CAP, and our wellness ambassadors, who are essentially like community researchers, in which they really played an important part of the study. which I'll kind of talk about, but also our community partners in Petersburg and how some of these community or employees at some of these organizations also served on our CAB, in which they helped with the creation of the WE project or gave ideas on how we should carry out this next iteration of the WE project. And the CAB also helped create what the dissemination project is going to be that I'm going to explain. When we talk about our wellness ambassadors, again, in this project, they were the key liaisons between the research team and the participants, our residents in Petersburg that were part of the study, and really an agent of change in terms of delivering the health information on a weekly basis across 12 weeks. And being wellness ambassadors, we've seen in research that not only does it help increase the credibility and validity of the research, but they have some self-improvements and within themselves that creates, a drive for them to want to better their own personal health after they've served as like a leader in their community. So these wellness ambassadors underwent trainings just to really understand the purpose of their role in the project, as well as what is the purpose of this project and why is it so meaningful to the residents of Petersburg. Fast forward to the project has now wrapped, thinking about new dissemination plans. They say don't recreate the wheel. So some of the things that I thought of stemmed from that first iteration of the WE project. So as the research team, we first want to find a way to creatively, in an engaging way, share these results with our wellness ambassadors. So small events leading up to our big one. This will be our first dissemination event, in which we're going to possibly do like a dinner, sit down and kind of share the results with them, but then get together with our wellness ambassadors and see, okay, what's the plan to disseminate it to our study participants, our community residents, and essentially our community partners, because the end goal is sustainability and the health resources that we developed in the WE project. Now, my community health block party that I proposed for this grant has not been conducted yet or carried out. We are still in the planning phases. However, I got this idea. It's not just like a health event. People may not come to a health event, but if I throw in the word party, block party, oh, now we got the heads turning. So with this community block party, again, created in collaboration with our CAB, we want to present it for the participants, CAB members, the community stakeholders, and the residents of Petersburg. And a couple aims, really just to share what's the feasibility and acceptability of this house chat model and some physical dietary outcomes that we want to share. So as I mentioned, the first iteration, they put on this grand play and had such success. But for the block party, I'm like, okay, I don't want to spend all the time on just the play. I want it to be very interactive. I want the participants to be able to speak out about their experience in the WE project, have a community health wall where they can post any inspirations, any goals, anything, accomplishments, infographics, because you still have the people that like to read and take home the information with them. But how do we make it engaging? How do we have fun activity? Adding in some exercise demonstrations, nutrition demos, line dancing, double dutching, in which some of these ideas came from our CAB as well. But also being able to evaluate what the success of this community health block party. So as I mentioned, we have not carried out this block party yet, but I wanted to create a visual for how I hope it would go on. So I created a video for you guys, and please excuse the emblem floating because I do not pay for AI, but Women's Health Block Party. This block party will be a culturally relevant event, collaborating with some of our community partners to bring interactive activities for all. This includes live cooking demonstrations, guided exercise demos, and some good old line dancing and double dutching for the heart. Former WE participants will have the opportunity to share their experiences about the intervention on our community health wall. By partnering with a local theater company, we'll be able to share our results about the feasibility and acceptability of our house chat model. Additionally, everyone will learn about the changes at 12 and 24 weeks in things such as their weight, waist circumference, glucose, physical activity, and dietary intake. This block party is an engaging way to bring together researchers, participants, and community members to learn about the WE project, as well as ways to sustain these efforts in their community. So So just an idea of how I hope it will go. And again, as Dr. Koblenzi mentioned, uh, this project is going to cost more than $5,000. I'm grateful for the $5,000 received from the Community Engagement Division of Community Engagement, but we will supplement the funds through the parent grant as well. But again, I just want to say thank you to the VCU Division of Community Engagement for seeing my vision before it even comes to light, and our PIs, Dr. Masavo and Dr. LaRose. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Jones. It looks like Dr. Koblinski has a question. Go ahead.
Of course.
So, would you be interested in having the mural at your event?
I would, yes. Sorry, I'm trying to find my stop share. Yes, again, we wanted like culturally relevant things, a part of Richmond, a part of Petersburg, this area, and I definitely would love to have that because people would love to see, artists from their area, their home,
Yeah,
a part of it. It makes it feel like you're connected to the community. So I would love to have your traveling murals come travel down. Uh,
yeah.
I love that. Yes.
That sounds like looks like a great party. And yeah, Mr. Ron Thompson was our community champion, and he's from Petersburg. He painted a mural in Petersburg and works at the that free healthcare. I forget what it's called now.
Pathways?
Yeah, Pathways. Thank you. I'm
Yes.
horrible with names. So yeah, that would be awesome. And yeah, that sounds like a really awesome
Thank
event.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions coming up for Dr. Jones? Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, was there a hand raised? No. Yes, you are unmuted. Or maybe she might be talking to somebody else. Okay. Dr. Zhu, we would like to welcome Dr. Zhu. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Those were exciting. I learned a lot from our presenters. My name is Yaoying Xu. I am faculty from School of Education at VCU. My core team members include science education faculty, staff from the Global Education Office, the family engagement specialist, a postdoc scholar, and Richmond City Libraries, and of course, families from the communities. I am going to share my screen, just show one of the final product. And then when I talk through, I will refer back to this storybook. So our project, we call it Project STEAM to emphasize the arts into the traditional STEM. And then based on our previous research project. So Project STEAM was initially funded by the VCU Accelerate Research Project, research funds. And that support our research project to engage parents of preschool-aged children from diverse community partners and diverse community settings too. The project was later sponsored by the Robbins Foundation and the Community Development Foundation to support additional families. So with all those funding that we were able to expand our study, a total of over 200 families from Richmond and the surrounding counties, as well as a few from other states virtually, they participated. So over 200 families were engaged throughout the last 2 years. And in addition to the foundation's funding, as well as the Accelerate funding, this grant, the Data Dissemination funding of $5,000 that's from the VCU Office of Community Engagement that really allow us to focus on data dissemination in a very innovative way. So I really do appreciate this opportunity to share our findings. Our project has been wrapped up in this past summer. This is one of the product. It's a storybook, bilingual in English and Spanish. So I will share briefly about the process of this dissemination grant, and then I would like to conclude with some impacts for future next steps. So the project STEAM, our first step, because it's based on our previous research, we summarized our qualitative research findings from our research project previously. And our first step was to create the storybook. And we used the storybook as the main tool to disseminate our qualitative data. And those qualitative data were from focus groups with the families. This process then was started by our team members, and we drafted the book first. After the first draft, we shared that with the whole project team. The second draft of the book, then based on the feedback from our large team, was sent to families, which this is the core part of this project is families, they are part of the project not only as the recipients, but as participants. So the families particularly who previously participated in our full project STEAM program funded previously. So this was the most important part that because it helped us ensure that this book has to be engaging as well as communicating the themes that we have identified. And then how do we want to communicate back with our participants? So then after the third round of draft, we started work with local artists who we decided to use cartoon features of pictures because we want to make sure to reflect families who are participants, but also want to make sure that this could have the potential to be generalized to the larger population. So we provided this artist with the third draft of the storybook. And then we met with the artist to talk about like the focus of the people who were the participants with a very diverse background. And then we want to make sure the illustrations, they are as representative as possible to represent our different types, different characteristics of families as reflected by our research. And each page of the book was one side was English, and then followed by Spanish if it's on the same page. Otherwise, it's two sides. And then this is with this book as one of the products. We are working with the Richmond libraries. There are 4 libraries we identified as our community partners to use story time to engage parents and their preschool-aged children. So the story time consists of 2 parts. The story time includes the story itself and activity. So that way we allow particularly kids in the preschool age, that's our target for children, and they don't have to just follow the page of the book, but then they can act out the activities. So for example, that they use they are provided blocks and paper a bag of blocks and a piece of paper and create a concept of earthquake and how they experience that. So then the storybook was offered as multiple locations with the parents' feedback of parents are very positive about this activity as well as the story themselves. And then the second part of this grant data dissemination, again, through around the themes we identified is we offered a workshop. So the workshop was also a partnership with the Richmond Public School Libraries. We first talk with the leadership in the library to identify what would be the best time of the event. And then we decided to host a workshop in the main library. And this workshop was also very successful because we have one of our bilingual doctoral students and be the facilitator of the workshop. And then we invited other families to be part of facilitators around the table. There are over 38 participants in the workshop. This is a little big that we could well, first we thought we would divide it up into smaller groups, but because the timing, so in the future we would like to break down into smaller groups. It's just more manageable. So the workshop was designed in a very culturally responsive way because we wanted some structure, like we have an introduction and the stations and the conclusion. And then we introduce families to start with several songs, both in English and Spanish. Children were provided their own instruments so they could participate in making the music. So every child had the opportunity to be a musician or artist. So for example, the stations we have stations for math. The math station families researched the sizes of solar systems and then created their own model. And then we have the science station. Families research and draw galaxies. For the engineering station, families created a straw rocket. And then we also have a technology station. Families created a star projector. All this was done through the workshops and follow the structure. And we do also collected feedback from participants. One feedback that would help us in the future is families that they wanted to engage, but they wanted more structure, like breakdown into steps. But when positive feedback from both the story time and the workshops or families, particularly parents, they realize that they are empowered by being part of this process with their children. Several families asked if there were other opportunities to do STEAM activities with their child. And they also suggested that they would like to engage more. So we as a team, we would like to not only just do the continued activity, but we would like to apply for external grant proposal to expand more families, but also based on the findings, we would like to examine further effects. I welcome any questions or we can answer questions later. Thank you. And then at the end of this book, we also provided some, showcase some of children's own work with their parents' permission. So this book, the copies of this book, we donated copies, over 200 copies to the local library as well as some churches with the preschool programs. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Dr. Zhu. Any specific questions for Dr. Zhu? Okay. Let's go to Dr. Prom Wormley. Thank you, and welcome, Dr. Prom Wormley.
Thank you so much. Hold on one second. Can you all see my slides okay? Perfect. I am going to try my best to keep us in time. I make no strong promises. So this is, I'm so excited. And the reason is because I'm so excited about our project, and I'm just going to gush on about what we've done and our partners and whatnot. So I'm going to tell you about our project, which is Party with Data and an expansion of our Party with Data. So, and I will explain what this is about in a second. But before I get started, you don't get to do any of this work unless you get to do it with your friends and your colleagues. And to this, I would not be here in this moment if it weren't for the hard work and dedication of all the people that are identified here, from the work that we've done previously in research and the work that we're doing now in terms of dissemination. Um, and of course, we're very grateful to VCU for the Data Dissemination Grant, as well as other funders for the original research. So so what is the Party with Data? I'm just going to jump right into it and kind of then give you the background story. So the Party with Data is a community-facing activity table where we talk about results from research studies. This particular with data table that we're doing right now is focused on sharing results from a series of focus groups we conducted in 2023 in collaboration with the Richmond and Henrico Health Districts, as well as two community organizations. We've been doing Party with Data for many years now, and we rotate the results that we share throughout Richmond, depending on whatever research projects we have available. So right now, we're disseminating these results with our community partners. To date, we have been able to interact with about 385 different individuals through our 11 tables throughout the spring and summer. Um, and what do we actually do at those tables? So if you can see here with our table with McGruff the Crying Dog during National Night Out, you can notice that we have this big piece of paper that we use at the very end, and you can also see these color cards. And you also see that you have these color blocks. So a participant will come to our table, they'll roll the block, and for whatever color comes up, they will then grab a card that corresponds with the color. That card has a question that is related to some result that we've identified from our research project. So it might be something as simple as, who do you think participated more in our study? Was it women or men? And then they say, oh, I think it was women. And then we turn over the card and we say, oh, you're right. About 60% of our participants were women. And so we will slowly share those results with our participants as they continue playing the game. They're not required to do anything. And because they always ask like, oh, if I get it right, do I get a prize? Like, you're going to get a prize no matter what. So, like, it's really just about learning what has happened in our space. And starting a conversation, and we let them stop whenever they want to stop. I'm always expecting that participants are going to want to stop at like one question, but generally speaking, most participants will get through about 3 to 5 questions, and sometimes you'll get people who are going for 10 and 12 questions because they're just having such a good time, and really enjoying what they're learning. Once they've had enough of the game, then they go to this white paper that we have. It's butcher block paper, and we have some sort of question. In this paper, it says like, "What's in your mental health toolbox?" But we change the questions every time, and we'll also ask at the end of like the times that they're answering the questions, we'll say something like, "Okay, you've heard these results. Are they surprising to you? How have they aligned with your own personal experience?" And if you want to give us any advice, then we ask for the advice on that piece of paper with our question. So it might be like, tell us what we should be thinking about when it comes to mental health, or what we did more recently is that we asked them about another event that we were putting together with our community partner, which is a workshop. And we said, hey, you're hearing all these results about substance use, and we would like to put together with our community partners a workshop focused on substance use. What are the kinds of things that you want to see in such a workshop if you could make it? And so they had questions, and you can see like some questions like, I want to, talk about substance use as opposed to connecting with youth, and social media and rehabilitation counseling. And how do I cope without the urge of using substances as a crutch? And so they're giving the advice on what we would be putting into our workshops. And in some cases, we get children and adults. So we've made this like friendly for all people. And in some cases, yeah, we're not asking them, we're not going to ask kids about like, what do you want to know about substance use, especially if they're 3 years old. So we'll say something like, just give us a picture about something that makes you happy. And we might not even say drugs, like what brings you joy. And so you'll see these random pictures throughout because the kids are participating. The other thing that, and I'm just going to go back to this one, is that you see also on the right-hand side, we have some books. So these books are aligned with mental health topics. So we know that mental health is comorbid with a lot of substance use, and sometimes people need to find their language with respect to substance use. So we wanted to give children and parents the ability to think about mental health topics like anxiety, like depression, through children's books. And so whenever a child would come by, we would also invite them to grab a book to take home with them, and they could read with their parents or their caretakers. They would also receive a bag with just little light goodies, some light snacks, and we would also put in a resource guide that might have substance use or mental health resource organizations, as well as organizations that might be supporting social determinants of health, transportation, housing, employment, etc. So it was like, a full experience there. But again, it was meant to inform what we decided to do next. So once people would finish having these, putting feedback on their paper, inevitably we would engage in discussions. And you saw in some of the other pictures that people just stayed and talked to us about, things that they were worried about, things that they wanted to talk about. And so we would align that with whatever we saw on the paper. And by virtue, whenever I could be at a table, I was at a table. And especially at the very big events, because RPS, for example, invited us to their summer fest. And that is like a wide ranging group of people. So we would also have these party with data tables in English and in Spanish. So you will see that there's a little bit of feedback in Spanish. And we also offered books, either bilingual or Spanish only, as well as in English. So we were prepping because we knew that we wanted to be responsive to community feedback. So now let me give you a little bit of a background, why we decided to do things this way. How did we get to substance use? How do we get there? So in 2023, my team was working with the team from Richmond Henrico Health District, as well as these two nonprofit organizations, Free and A Better Day Than Yesterday. And we were conducting a series of focus groups focused on substance use overdose, primarily opioid overdose, and resource needs. What did the community feel like they needed in the moment? And the grant that was used to conduct this work was funded by NACCHO. And if you ask me what the letters stand for, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it's also like public health and leaders and like in health department spaces. And so we that grant was really focused on collecting the information and disseminating it on more of an organizational leadership level. So the Richmond Henrico Health District team was really focused on sharing out with other health district leaders or other nonprofit leaders or the opioid abatement authority or the Richmond opioid task force. But there wasn't a whole lot of dissemination to the community residents. So this dissemination grant allowed us to do that part through those Party with Data tables and our workshops. And it came at a really good time because I was, feeling kind of uneasy about this not inability to disseminate out to the larger community. And so when the grant RFA came out, I was like, ooh, this is perfect timing because we'd already been doing, kind of this leadership level dissemination. And and at the same time in fall 2024, our CAN partners had taken a hiatus. So CAN is Community Action Network. This is a group of nonprofit agencies that are working throughout Richmond, and they are convened by the Peter Paul Center. And in 2024, they reconvened. They took a hiatus during COVID. And so this was their first time working together again. And so it was a new group of players. They were trying to figure out what they wanted to do together. And one question that came up amongst themselves is here, we are supporting people who are engaged in substance use. And we'd like to do a better job. And we'd also like to do so in a way that doesn't engage police. We would like to make sure that we're supportive in that way. And so, how can we do that in a collaborative way? And so, I thought that this grant would allow for that communication and that collaboration across the entire CAN. And so, we started working together to put together a grant. And in that process, they asked for a couple of things. They said, we want a workshop series. So we like that you do these Party with Datas, Elizabeth. These are very nice, but we want something a little bit more focused, a little bit more intimate, and we want them to be filled with joy. We don't want you to be a Debbie Downer. We don't want you to be focusing all the negative things about us. We want you to provide education, and we also want to have this informed by the lived experiences of people affected by substance use, whether or not they're engaged in substance use. They may be in a recovery journey. They may be family members that are affected by substance use. But we want it informed by this experience, and because we want to start addressing the stigma and these negative perceptions against substance use and trying to really address barriers. So we just completed our workshop, our first workshop, where we really focused on the educational side this time. We will be moving towards a second one that'll be focused more on the resource pieces in 2026. And for those of you who are thinking about applying for this grant, this is the process that we used, so that, like you have a sense of like, what does it take? What's the timeline and how much commitment? And basically, we had our team partners helping us with the grant submission as well. And before I even started working on the grant submission, I went to my own research team and explained to them this opportunity. And I said, you guys are fine to say no. We don't have to do this. And to my surprise, the team members were like, and these are students, okay? They were like, yes, let's do it. We're going after this. What kind of help do you need in the grant writing process? So they helped write the grants, and we shared drafts with our partners. We asked them to provide feedback, so they were in it from the beginning, and then they also were able to put in like letters of support and feeling good about it. It wasn't just like, let me sign my name to something. I know what's going on here. And then from the moment we finished, we were already starting to prepare ourselves for what this would look like. So we started putting together our Party with Data materials, and then and we launched our first one in April. And then we started working with the full CAN, which is like about, I think we're probably at 40 organizations now. And we had a meeting in June to assess the full group interest, because it's one thing when the leadership from the CAN says yes. It's another thing when the actual partners around the table say yes. So I was also willing to say like, hey, we don't have to do this. I can, plop onto Party with Data and make something out of it. But they were all extremely interested, and they signed themselves on to be like subgroup of them signed on to being an action team. And so we met more regularly, like every other week. And then my team would meet and continues to meet on a weekly basis to address some of those more finer point details. So just some pictures from this past weekend's event, we had the pleasure of hosting about 52 people. These were people that were community organizations that were, part of the CAN, and also community members. Absolutely similar to other presentations here today. The community partners were absolutely clutch in getting folks to actually attend. And so I definitely you don't want to underestimate that. The things that we were doing in the workshop were went this way. When a person came in, they were greeted with a small resource fair of CAN partners. We did not want to make it overwhelming. We had about 10 organizations having their tables. And then we had a welcoming event. We also had then we would split off into two concurrent sessions, one for adults, one for children ages 11 to 17. And we were talking that both of them were receiving the same substance use curriculum, but just geared towards the different age ranges. And then after we finished those concurrent sessions, we brought the full group in together. And what you can see over here in the top right-hand corner are two people having an interaction. We did role playing. So we had them read out a skit of like a typical parent-child interaction around substances. And then the audience was able to provide feedback on what went well, where it could have gone better, areas that they were concerned about, or like struggling in their own conversations within their own parent-child relationships. So we did that as well. And we opened that up to the full entire group, as you can see here, to have that conversation. We also wanted to, because being an educator, I like to, like make an idea land and go home with a person. So we also put together a myths and facts sheet that was on the front, all the key pieces of the curriculum that we tried to get across to the participants in the concurrent sessions in case they forgot they had something to take home. And on the back, we had this few little results from our focus groups because we knew we couldn't talk about them directly during the event. There just wasn't enough time. So we had a take home for them. But we also had our Party with Data table there so they could learn it. Because I know I've gone over time. I'm not going to talk about our feedback, but we did also ask for feedback in feedback forms. And for overall, it was very positive. So with that, I'll just say that we are not done. Our work is not done. We are going to be starting a series of youth-focused workshops in December. Where we're going to be engaged in substance use education, more traditional substance use education, but we're also going to have moments of reflection across 3 weeks and to allow the students to not only learn, but reflect on what they have learned. And that reflection we're going to give them prompts and kind of guidance and allow them to take that reflection in whatever form feels best to them. So some may determine that they want to do reflective writing, others may want to do art or photo voice. And others may want to put together any collages. So we're going to allow them to take it wherever they want, and we'll make sure that they have the materials to do so. The last thing that we're going to be doing is going back to our other nonprofits that were focused in the correction spaces, and we're going to be taking these educational pieces and modifying it to those correction spaces to have similar education and discussions. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prom-Wormley. Any initial questions for Dr. Prom-Wormley or any of our other panelists? I have questions, so no one else does. Okay. I'll ask, and if you think of something, feel free to drop it in the chat, raise your hand, come off of mute. We can take other questions. But as you all were completing your applications last year, earlier this year, were there any parts where you were like, I need to think through this a little bit more, or I need to go back to my community partner and ask other questions? Did any questions arise that you felt that needed a little bit more massaging as you were thinking through the process of what this proposal looks like, but also how to complete the project and implement it?
as I said, all the time. For me, it was like definitely all the time. Um, I think it was a work in progress. I think, and I realized I didn't like even explain as all of it as well as the other women did. But I think, we, in that first, even just, I'm like listening here, I'm learning something else that I can do throughout the project. So for me, it's like being open to learning that and to seeing what's best. Because like I said, as a basic scientist, I don't, this is not my field at all, right? So, I mean, had a passion to want to do it, but I just had a lot to learn about what's the right way to do it. And I'm open to what other people think to do and how to do that. So, I forgot to say, we made a coloring sheet, and that got a lot of kids to come engage in it. And then the parents stayed. And I'm just thinking, what Liz just showed, maybe I should put on the back of it some more information. But something else that none of us talked about, that so I picked up t-shirts to have for Massey at the development office. And I talked with the manager of development office, and she told me, "Oh, you should bring your mural to my church in Churchill on 22nd Street." She's like, "But don't leave it there." That's why she's the one that gave me, she's like, "You need to paint it with graffiti thing too." But she's like, "Don't leave it there, but come." And then she's like, "Oh, what about the QR code?" She's like, "Some people aren't going to engage on that." I go, "Oh, my 82-year-old mother said the same thing." I said, "So we made sure it was an easy to type in also, right?" She's like, "Some of these people can't read, Jennifer." And I was like, okay, so I need to make something more engaging with them. And I feel like I just learned from all of these ladies ideas. Like maybe I can make some other thing to engage them even more. But we, like in that first day at that, we had over 167 people stop by and engage with us already. So I'm hoping, like what Liz showed, that throughout each event, we continue to grow that. But yeah, I feel like that's a big part of it, is being open to learning from everyone that's involved.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it wasn't so much in the planning. What I had to do in the writing was to be very intentional about, I want to show that I have good bones for the process, that like there are key points in the process that we're going to do this, this, and this. But I also need to demonstrate that I've got flexibility here in the process so that those community perspectives, partner perspectives, can go whatever direction they need to go. So I didn't want to be so, like prescribed within the grant submission, but also, a reviewer has a hard time assessing whether or not you actually know what you're doing, because they're like, oh, you just like winging it. And so you have to balance this with that piece. You want to be supportive and demonstrate that you know how to engage, but also that you know where your key points are. So I think the bigger part is now in the process. And Jennifer said it, Chloe said it, everybody, Yao Ying has said it as well. Like, really, it's in that process where you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that I would need to know about that. Like, and definitely as we're doing the youth workshops for December, we've learned several things along the way that we need to be mindful of, and we've been preparing very carefully for that.
And then from my perspective, I think one big thing we learned, if we do this proposal again in the proposal development process, make it clearer with the community partners. We have this team. We are used to write a grant, have a schedule. Then we thought we made it clear, but when we implemented the components, then community partners, like they knew, but then some of them were not very clear about what they have committed to do. Even they provided a letter. So then we had to come back and to spend more time to explain and then work with some of our conflicts that related to the schedule, for example. So the second point of what we learned is to really, because our project include target families from diverse background, and we really needed to be more mindful about their schedule, their commitment. If we only consider Saturday, then some parents are working on Saturday or evenings. So those were two things we learned. Be clear about the expectations and be more respectful and mindful.
We're still in the planning process, so we haven't actually, put on the block party. But I would just say for myself as a postdoc in training, learning to really like lean in on the cab and, be open and accepting of what their ideas are because, I'm going in with my ideas like, oh, this worked last time. But making sure that their voices come through in the project and the grant as well. And their ideas that they had because in honesty, I called it a community health block party, but they brought some of the fun. They're like, you need to reach out to so and so, see if they could bring some people in to double dutch and, have you talked to this person? So just remembering what the purpose of the cab is and that this is a true collaboration and that their ties to the community and their knowledge of the community is really helpful.
Well, thank you all, and thank you so much for your time and presenting your work. Even though I'm sure for most of you it's still in progress, we appreciate you sharing that information with our potential applicants. I'm going to drop a link for our next informational session, the registration for that. In case you are interested, those are hosted with Dr. Masavo. They talk a lot more about logistics for the application process. And we look forward to hopefully reading some of you all's applications in the near future. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Good luck all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.